So anyway, welcome to the Daily CMO. I run these videos and podcasts per se to interview people, to talk to people like yourself, right? Business owners, marketers mostly. We had this conversation about fractional CMO. I thought this is a very interesting thing because right now people they want freedom, right? And many people they don't want to work to a company 9 to 5 every day. They still want these opportunities with some of these amazing companies.
Yeah.
And I think you have that kind of experience from your past few roles. So maybe you introduce yourself, let me know who you are and what you do.
I'm Jeff. I am now running a startup community and also a venture builder hybrid called Forward Founders. We are basically community-based. We wanted to gather people from all sort of background, whether they are startup operators, founders, investors, finance, or anyone in the startup scene together in one space, and hopefully to actually benefit more to solo founders and also early stage startup people. Because I realized solo founders and early stage needed that the most.
So what's the breakdown like? Like you run like meetups or you run like events or how does it work?
In fact, I actually just launched the first New Year party event on 12th of January in one of my partners' co-working space. Just get to know each other, so slowly introduce Forward Founders, right? It's on the 12th of January, it's on a Friday, so it's like Friday happy hour kind of thing, celebrate New Year, new me, new connection, new vibe, right? New partners, new collaboration, all those kind of things. We will run a lot of events in 2024, right? But I want to make it a very laid-back, casual kind of setting. In a bar or maybe in a cafe, in something that's very laid back, and of course having the audience have fun. Two things, right? One is as a solo founders, you're looking to join Forward Founder is because again, aside from hanging out together with like-minded people, you will able to actually gain more support and resources in terms of helping you to get paying customers, right? I think that's what companies needed the most. Hey, I have trouble with this, then we'll come in and work together, right? And how you can get 10 paying customers in the next 3 months, then we help you to scale. Then after that, we will of course look at your model and see if it's investable, right? And if you're looking for funding, that's where we can connect you to investors.
Are you referencing any other companies out there for founders?
I'm actually took inspiration from one of the community in the US. She's a very fantastic community builder. She charged $1,000 per month, and she helped those startup founders to get paying customers by helping them to dissect and also structure their business model and to get paying customers, to get revenue, to get early revenue. The next stage is to get them funded. I like her model because it's very much straightforward. And she got a lot of case study. I'm from a business development background. Whenever I have ideas or things like that, the first thing I'll do is it's not going to the tech guy. How would you pay? How much are you willing to pay for this solution, right? So I kind of like equal to what her direction is. And that's why I sort of like model the way she built the community and adapted in Malaysia.
In sales and marketing, right, there's always this thought, right? Or I don't, is it a thought or is it a framework? I don't know what is it, but there's always this saying, if you want to build revenue, you go for people who have the money. You don't hang out with people who do not have the money. Do you think you are doing that with Forward Founders? Because you're going for the early stage people rather than going with people who already have like a base?
I will not be the same as other people, other companies. In terms of revenue generation, of course, I will go for people that can pay his money and things like that. But again, it comes back to how am I different from others? There's definitely a better community like BNI, there's a better community like Restart or even C Founders that are actually doing the same thing. And they can definitely get more revenue or whatever from there, right? But for me is that what will happen to those guys, right? I got to take care of those guys. I'm a people person, right? The way I do sales is very different. I don't sell products and business at the very first sales call. I just learn about that person before I even do a sales call. I adopt this mantra, people equals to business, actually comes from a guiding principle in Fave. So I have millions of ideas, right? I have like a lot of ideas coming in, but I want to execute all. A lot of people will say that, even my mentor will say that, hey, you're going to focus on just one and just do it. But in my mind, it's just like, oh shit, I have this idea, I have that idea, I have this idea. If I were to start all, it's not a wise move, right? Hence, venture building comes in where I can now build whatever that I want in parallel.
So basically, you leverage on the startups. Hopefully, they grow.
Correct.
And then you take a small little chunk from it, right? That makes better sense than trying to make revenue directly from the...
You won't make $1 million or $2 million business, but community is the one that able to actually crowdsource ideas, crowdsource validation, crowdsource experiment from there, which I think is a good combination, right? If you see a lot of venture builder now, they may not have a very strong component of community behind it, like actually contribute or maybe crowdsource the idea out, right? But now I wanted to, the first phase is to build a strong community where they can actually, hey, I have an idea, let's move it together, right? Then I already have a venture building team, right? I have tech, I have operators, everyone there to help you. and you're the solo founder, great, I'll come in, right? And that's where we can grow the company. And at the same time, you can validate faster your idea with that community as well. You don't need to spend more time, invest a lot of money into validate the idea whether it makes sense or not. So my methodology is that you're gonna validate first before you start building the product. Would people even want to pay? Take an idea, for example, lending, digital lending, right? Lending at its core is all about finding cheap money. You're finding lower cost of capital and you lend at a higher cost. I can borrow from lenders at 6 to 10% per annum. Then I just lend out at 15 to 16% per annum. And all this, right, can be done through an Excel sheet. It doesn't need to be a tech unless you have a lot of demand where you need automation happen. That's the tech. It comes to a point where why not? I can just do it without a tech first. I go sell the product. Do people want to use it or not? We got to validate fast enough, and that's where community comes in to help us to, hey, let's validate the idea. Compared to go to, alone, seek out anyone in the industry that, hey, you have 5 minutes of time. But with the community, is everything going to move faster? It will be a very strong combination, a strong complement to venture building space.
So maybe let's talk a bit about the fractional part of being a CMO or being a sales manager. What do you call that? What do you call that position? What do you call yourself in that capacity?
In the layman terms, it's more towards outsource head of something, like outsource head of growth. When I call myself outsource head of sales, head of growth, head of BD, right, where people can outsource a position rather than I hire them full time. Right? If we look at how companies are evolving in terms of hiring right now, a lot of people would go to agency in terms of marketing, right? Will engage with the marketing agencies to actually run their marketing. They don't really need to hire a full marketing team to execute their marketing campaigns or whatnot. That also slowly evolved into tech, right? Where I can outsource a tech development agency to actually build a website, things like that. I don't really need to hire. It keeps evolving to a point that now, a lot of people have moved out from different startups, right? So you look at maybe Grab, for example, right? There's a lot of early people inside Grab, and after like 6-7 years or maybe up to 10 years, right? They move out, but they gain a lot of experience. They're now offering their experience as a way to help companies, correct? And yet they don't want to stick to one company. They want to I'm much more motivated to actually work with different kind of company at the same time, right? Rather than attached to one. Simply because what you have mentioned, like they want freedom. It creates another new category in the gig. I would say maybe a gig economy. I don't know, right? Yeah, right. Where experienced people now, they're looking for more freedom. But I have experience, I don't want to attach to a company, right? Rather work with different kind of companies.
What about the company's end? Like you work in a few companies before, right? How much percentage was outsourced? How much of it was in-house?
Okay, let's look at fractional head of growth, for example. The scope of work is very simple. It's to manage, lead, and train sales team, the business development team, right? You will never able to actually execute the business development process for them. You are helping that for one company, right? You may not have time to go for other company, right? Correct, to execute. So your time is capped. You may not able to actually be more productive for one company, and then it will actually brings you disaster more than benefit. The scope is more towards on the management level. You dissect, you strategize, you provide reports, you train, you manage the sales guys, right? In terms of sales, right, it's all about, okay, how many people I talk to, what are the challenges, how can I help you? I think that is something that you can outsource to a fractional head of sales rather than hiring a full-time. You can churn far more resource. You can actually get more budget to pay those junior sales guys for commissions. Because in the end of the day, sales only one thing, right? They are good at sales, right? They are very hungry for commissions, money, and things like that. If you give them a good commission, oh shit, I'm gonna go all out for sell my backside so whoever right to actually get that deal in. It kind of makes sense because you see most of the people from different backgrounds, let's say from engineering degree or whatever, they all move into property. They all move into insurance because simply that the incentive is far more rewarding than what they do in a job that related to the degree. So they don't mind, not getting paid on a base salary on real estate, right? So I mean, real estate don't have a base. They only earn the commission, right? So, but if they can close 1 or 2 property deals, like $1-2 million, they get like 1 or 2%. It's not already, right? All they need to do is just be hungry and just go and hunt for deal.
Let's just use an example. I know head of sales, the kind of salary they draw is different in different organizations, right? But let's just say for a tech company, what would be the amount they draw each month?
It's definitely the 5-figure. 15,000, 20,000, I guess. Not too sure. Okay. Yeah, it's that amount.
And then if the company were to get a fractional CMO? How much?
At least half of
At least half of it?
At least half of it, or even more than half of the cost can be cut. Because again, I'm paying a fraction of a price to only do a few scope that I think is essentially enough to get the result that they need, compared to them hiring a full-time and get the same result. So that's the gap I'm trying to come in, right? If you're able to pay a fraction of price to get the same result, would that be beneficial for companies then?
I guess so, right? but there are also a few drawbacks here and there that I potentially see. For example, okay, let's just say we are a fractional head of sales in this company, right? Would that affect the morale of people who work full-time in there?
A really good salesperson doesn't care about how the organizational structure is. They don't care about how much money I can earn. Although, there are some salesperson will care about, who's my leader, right? All this kind of thing. But in reality, if you want to really find a good salesperson, you got to really find the one that's hungry for money. They don't care how bad or good your company, your structure is, your culture is, right?
Yeah, I use this example because I'm sure you've heard of stories for this group of people who works for this startup or even banks also, And what happens is their leader quits or their leader retire. And what happens is the whole team starts to disperse and go somewhere else. Or maybe they even follow the leaders to another
That's
company.
actually a great answer. That's actually good point, right? Yeah. So that's why fractional comes in, because they don't have that bonding in place.
But would it affect the whole company
it won't. I think it depends on how the company look at it, right? It's how the company managed it. Reality is that I want the team to perform. They still have that cultural impact, right? Where I still trust a company, I can still there. I think that will work lah. Same goes to community building, right? Do you think community building need to be done in-house or you can outsource?
Community building?
Yes.
Okay, so to give you some context, I am also a fractional CMO for a company or so, right? Yeah. But as a business owner myself, if I were to hire, right, if it's not a monetary problem or challenge, right, I would definitely hire in-house. I think things are so much more smoother if we can do it in-house. Maybe the challenge is because finding the right people is hard. And yeah, you can hire a lot of freelancers, you can hire a lot of contract workers. Yes. But what I found, right, is they don't have that same skin in game sort of mentality. Yeah, they do the work, but they're not really into your company. They're not really building it for you. They're just doing the work. Whether
the problem is in-house better or outsource better, right? And then below it, there is a problem. Hard to find people. Even though you hire someone in-house, let's say head of sales, the nature of it, if I look at other offers, I will jump. So the turnover there is actually high. Then as a company owner, right, I cannot afford to train another new guy, and I have to invest more to find head of sales, and it's expensive. So rather than focus on fractional, no contract tie, nothing in, you don't need to give EPF or whatever.
Just saving yourself a lot of cost.
Correct. Would that actually outweigh the team perspective on looking at a leader or cultural impact, right? So that's a question that I think company need to answer. So one of the key challenge to address whenever any company or startup that wanted to get a head of sales or maybe head of marketing or whatever is what are the costs that you cannot see. I think it's up to the company to decide, and also how we channel it down to the employee, the sales team, right, or the marketing team. I mean, that term fractional thing is still very new. I think both of us are still figuring out, how would that be in the long term, right? Yeah. And things like that. I wouldn't know, right? But I thought it's an interesting idea for companies that wanted to save on money, doesn't want to take that time to hire head of sales again and again. Because I'm seeing that, right? Startups have been laying off people and they hire because they can. That head of sales cannot perform lah. Cannot perform.
Maybe for companies who want to take a bit less risk lah, So it's if it doesn't work out, there's no employment contract.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
It's messy, right? I mean, in Malaysia, they protect the employees. Fire someone, you need to do all those letters and all that. You have to make a lot of repayments,
and especially and my relevant audience are potential customers are all from maybe in the early stage side, where they got a bit of seed money or maybe funding to actually grow them to raise or to really generate consistent revenue from there. And that's where I come in. Because a really experienced head of sales, I don't think they will come in that area.
If they see potential in the startup and they take a small stake in it,
then those startups in that early stage, right, wouldn't take their own sweet time to actually look one by one, right? They want to execute faster. They need talent very badly. But the question is, can I outsource?
Since we are on this topic, right, we will end up with this little thought, right? Yeah. Maybe you disagree with me, maybe you agree with me, but let's see what happens, right? Okay. So in my experience as a marketer, done marketing for a few companies, say as head of marketing, right? Did a bit of agency work, call it freelancing, call it agency work. It's kind of near the same thing, right? Depends on your size of your business, right, and your company. What I've always learned, right, is it's always better to work with a big company, with a big fund, compared to a company who has just got some funding. Why? Because let's just say you charge 10,000 for example, right? 10,000 to a big company, right? It's just like 0.05% of what they have. So if it fails, I'm okay. But for a small company, that 10,000 is do or die. So although you're doing the same kind of work, the impact is going to be very different. The impact that you can give a big company is much more. The impact that you're going to give a small company is much lesser and also much riskier for you. For most marketers, right, I would advise them to go for this route rather than go for the small guys because your life is going to be hell. What's your thoughts on that?
I think since you mentioned marketing, I think marketing scope, right, is very different from sales, right? Where even big companies need to outsource a designer, need to outsource someone to actually run campaigns and things like that. So that I agree with you because the level of the type of work that needed to be done, any big company can simply outsource an agency to do that. My scope of work requires more hands-on with the founder itself to actually crack things happen, right? To prove the business model or to validate or whatever. I don't think that kind of like my scope will be able to apply in a bigger company where they have resources to hire a proper head of sales, right? To actually manage and run that thing, right? So it's I think on the marketing scope side is applicable, right? On the sales and business development side may not be. I'm not sure.
This agency like Denso, a media planning agency, right? They could be like, oh, we run. I'll make it simple so that everyone understands. Right? Social media agency, 4 social media posts for a huge company is going to give a different impact than 4 social media posts for a kindergarten. And the kindergarten will come back and say, hey, you're not performing just because their business is so small, right? And on the bigger side of things, the bigger company, that 4 social media posts could get like millions of hits and all that, right? Same kind of work, different kind of companies, different impact. Different feedback as well.
2 types of agency owner look at this. Either they wanted to earn consistent money and don't want to be bashed by clients, right? Big companies is the way to go. But the second one is that, those agency owner, but also entrepreneur try to really help those guys that are struggling, try to make that happen, right? Maybe they'll go, but they will also be struggle because they can't pay them.
They can't pay them and every dollar counts. So you're always going to be under constant pressure.
Then there's an evolution now where agency now we'll start building our own brand, right? Because they have skill set, right? I just need to OEM some brands over, and I just use my social media marketing skill set or advertising skill set to actually go and run it as a company. Whether your contract with big company or smaller company, right? Your dependency is still with the client, right? If the client cut your contract, oh shit, I'm gonna do. Right? Same thing, right? But if you're building your own brand, you own your thing. You can control your cost, your margin, or whatever. Right now, you're going full on entrepreneur mode, right? Go and sell that product, and you know that your marketing system works, right? Then you just go and do it, right?
All right, thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing.